Welcome to Aurora Connects Season 2. This is episode 9 for Friday, October 9th, 2020. Dancing Earth, an indigenous contemporary dance company. This is a pre-recorded episode that you're seeing due to our guest schedule and some technical difficulties. We tried to go live and the internet did not agree with us. So what you are watching now is a previously recorded episode, but we thank you for tuning in and still want to encourage you to use the comment and chat features of YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching this. And of course, please email us at connects@aurora.org.
AuroraTheater.org. Yeah.
AuroraTheater.org. AuroraTheater.org. I'm Dawn Monique Williams, Associate Artistic Director, and as always, joined by Josh Costello, Artistic Director. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Dawn, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Today's quote is not from a play, but it is a quote from my dear friend who is a writer, director, performer, and she's currently the executive director of the Yale Indigenous Performing Arts Program at Yale in New Haven, Connecticut. How different our understanding of place would be if we really knew the stories under our feet, if we were exposed to the stories of the place that we are in. That's my friend Madeline Sayet.
That is a fantastic quote. It's especially fantastic for the conversation we're having today, but also just in general, it's a wonderful idea.
Yes, absolutely. Josh, tell folks about why they should get a membership.
Yeah, so Aurora Theater Company, for our 2020-2021 season, we are offering memberships. This is a great way to get connected to everything that we're doing at Aurora Theater Company this season. It's not the season that we expected, but it's turning out to be really exciting. We have our first audio drama, The Flats, an original story that we commissioned from Lauren Gunderson, Cleavon Smith, and Jonathan Spector, three really wonderful humans and local playwrights. There's our beautiful artwork by Liz Latta. The Flats, the first episode of 3 drops on October 23rd. I've been listening to Elton Bradman's first draft of the sound design for it, and it's fantastic. I'm really excited about sharing this story with you all. It's a story that is written about what we're all going through right now, and it's not set during COVID-19. It's a different sort of moment, but it has a lot of resonance, and it's beautifully written and beautifully performed by Anthony Fusco, Kari Moy, and Lauren English. So I hope that you will, and also Rebecca Schweitzer. So I hope that you will check that out. Memberships are available, as are single tickets to the Flats, on our website, auroratheater.org. While you're there, you can click the donation button at the top right and help us get through this very difficult moment. Thank you so much.
Now, please enjoy our interview with founding artistic director of Dancing Earth, Rulan Tangen, perfectly timed for Berkeley's celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, October 12th. We are so thrilled to introduce our guest to you today, founding artistic director of Dancing Earth, an Indigenous contemporary dance company. Rulan Tangen, welcome to Aurora Connects. How are you?
Thank you. I love the name Aurora Connects, the dawn, new light, new day connects. What a great name that's so poetic and inviting.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we really, this has been the whole idea of this is connecting folks. And at the time when we started this right after the shelter in place began, and everybody was feeling so disconnected, and it's been a really wonderful way to stay connected with folks and to build new relationships as well. So thanks for joining us.
Well, we're meeting here in this cyberspace, but I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the homelands of the Ohlone peoples, many different Ohlone peoples, including Ramaytush over here on the this side of the bridge, and also Chochenyo and many other Ohlone nations. And nearby, up north a little bit, we've got the Miwok, Pomo, and coastal Miwok. And, just to give acknowledgement for the fact that these lands have been sung and danced into renewal since the beginning of time by those people who are still living, and they're still here. So yeah, just calling out to all those relatives, and grateful to be, even though we're not doing this in a land-based way, we still can connect in that way.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That has The land acknowledgement has Aurora made its sort of first land acknowledgement almost a year ago today on Indigenous Peoples Day last year in Berkeley. We sort of did our first land acknowledgement, and it's been quite a journey for us to kind of understand how to do it in a thoughtful way that really is about partnership with the traditional caretakers of this land, and not some sort of just like virtue signaling way. So thank you for leading us in that today. That's really appreciated. I wonder if you have any bigger, broader thoughts about land acknowledgements and their use and how people are introducing them more and more these days.
Well, I think it's a fundamental pre-step, right? Before moving into relation building, which doesn't just happen because we're knocking on the doors, right? It happens, trust has to be built. And I'll just say that for my own practice, I'm a Bay Area girl, a couple generations back. I've got the picture of the Golden Gate Bridge up behind me here.
Yeah.
Because my grandparents are buried under the foot of that bridge. And near the foot of that bridge, and the Presidio was my first ballet class. But it took a while for me to, I think with my dancing earth practice as an indigenous contemporary dance practice, it's intertribal in nature, global indigenous in nature. And so I come about this idea of land acknowledgement from both an insider and an outsider perspective, because I'm not Ohlone. I'm not of this particular land. So I think I had invited in Ohlone, Pomo, Miwok, um, and WAPO collaborators as singers. And then a few years back, I just took the time to listen and ask, okay, what is it that you'd want to tell a story about? So, moving from like choreographer and director, more about facilitating stories. And it emerged. I mean, I think it's really about that process of listening and bringing in people, but it emerged into public view on the first official Indigenous Peoples Day of San Francisco, at Alcatraz after the sunrise ceremony. And Amanda's back there with a little clip of just a 1 minute of what happened on that day. And in some ways, we like to say, movement or experience can be so much wider than wordifying into this little narrow box. So I'll just show that little clip so you can get a sense of the essence of that.
All right, we're going to get to that in just a second. It sounds like. While we're doing that up, can you tell us a little bit about Dancing Earth and what Dancing Earth is and does, and what the vision for it is?
It's probably something I had wanted to do for a very, very long time, but I was involved in my own professional dance career in New York, California, and Canada. And I went through quite a shift. Still not fairly young woman to go through a pretty severe battle with cancer. And I'm bringing that out into this story right now because there's so many people who are sick and suffering, cancer, COVID, many different challenges right now. But I was able to come out of it. I was alive. I am alive now. And I felt that there was something that I had to offer as a thank you that maybe was my reason for being here on Earth. So with no hair, with a burned face, not too many muscles, my intuition was very powerful, and the dancers that I had been literally waiting for them to be born, waiting for to meet them as little kids, and then or meet their parents, and then they emerged, they fell down from the sky like suddenly, they were age 19 and 21. They just fell out just as I was coming out of that battle. And we premiered at the Dance Mission, up that steps from 24th Street BART 16 years ago, and really have been going deep into this idea of theater practice and every aspect of theater. How is it relevant from various indigenous perspectives? So not one perspective layered on, but the different heritages that they're carried in each dancer. And sometimes that lineage is not a direct contact, because there's many forces that have caused some rifts. but to be able to use intuition and sharing and remembering and asking questions to be able to heal those rifts together. And through that, looking at every aspect of, what are we wearing? What is the lighting? Why are we in a box? Do we need to be in a theater? Can this be outdoors? So constantly revisioning that to, what I would call indigenized theater practice, and, to keep digging away at that all the time, which is why we decided that the groundworks piece should be shown at Alcatraz, outdoors, in a place where, historically in the 70s it had been a place of incredible political impact by intertribal gathering. But in doing so, maybe the California Native voice might not have been centered. So taking a moment to bring that centering forward.
We're able to play that video now.
Oh, I actually.
That's so beautiful. Oh, I wish I could have been there to
Mhm.
experience
I
that
know,
live.
right? And it was, yeah, and the weather was so beautiful. It could be cold at Alcatraz, especially at 6:30 in the morning. But those garments that we're wearing came from repurposed fabrics, or garments picked up from Goodwill. An incredible California native designer named Tashina Parker, she dyed them with natural organic dyes, and they were the color of the sun, and they seemed to attract in that sunlight. There's a teaching from Anishinaabe elders further east that says, we have to sing and dance with praise the things of beauty of this world, whether that's a bumblebee or a flower or the sun. Otherwise, they're going to go away. So we were wearing those sun-colored garments. The sun came down and warmed us. You're hearing a song, I believe it's shared by Ross Kiddy. He's actually a world traveling musician from Audio Pharmacy, which you probably know in the East Bay, like really incredible career. But his commitment is, to his Afro-Pomo people. So he's got a place up in Forestville that he's growing as a cultural center. And the cast is an incredibly diverse, super talented cast, including Same Dizon, who we know in the Bay Area from leading the Urban X Indigenous Festival. So really bringing together the great minds, the great hearts, the great artistic talents to honor our California Native relatives there. And we have, I think right after that, I moved into something at UC Berkeley, so close to you all. I was invited there. And years earlier, there'd been a panel where some California Native folks said, hey, you choreographers, if you're going to come here, we'll tell you what stories to tell. And so I said, if I ever get invited, I'm going to go back to the woman who said that and say, listen, what is it that needs to be said at this time? And Amanda, that's going to be that other clip from Groundwork Sweet Chin. And her name is Karina Gould. And for any of you who are in the East Bay, she's someone to know about, because she's amongst a group of incredible Native women leaders who decided, we're all of these struggles that they're, you know, to survive and be who they are, because they don't have a land base, right? I mean, the most desirable real estate in this country, and they don't have the treaties that'll recognize their status in order to, so they said, we're going to buy it back, and we're going to give the people of this land a chance to help us with that by setting up an optional tax. All right, you've been here, you love it, okay, how about some tax back to Native folks? And so it's a Native-led land-based land trust, and they use it for different things. They get to be sovereign. They get to do what they need to do on that land. And I believe it's an intertribal collaboration of women doing that. But how genius is that? I mean, talk about decolonization. So it's the Sogorea Te Land Trust. And I really recommend it to you, all of us who are thinking at this time about like, what are different ways of being? Like, how can we be on this land in a way that's more conscious and not repeat the the settler, um, these ways of being that just invisibilize and silence people. So
Yes.
I took this idea of well, she came to the class, the UC Berkeley students, and she shared the stories of what the campus had been, and she invited us to dance our first presentation of it on the shell mounds, the ancestral burial grounds. And I think that's the story that's spoken in this clip. And because she said, in order for us to keep that place, which is now a parking lot, we have to show that it's still used for ceremony. She said, your dances are ceremony, so please go there. And we did that. We chose to do it with no humans witnessing. We wanted to do it for the ancestors.
Mm.
So this was the second time out where we got to be on a stage, but the first time out was there on the parking lot that is also an ancestral burial ground.
that's where our shell mound is. And our shell mound's our burial site, our ceremonial site. It was the very first place that my ancestors lived along the bay. And it's older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than any city in the world. And to imagine that this creek that's up here at this campus connects that to that magical place. I think what we brought back from that trip was that this ancestor is so beautiful, that she was so old, but she still had bits of feather that was hanging on her, and all of these little tiny clamshell beads.
1 minute
And
after we
that
start
she was
dancing.
happy that
So
we were there,
like
but
something
she really
else,
just
seven
said it's
something.
time for us to come home,
Can't really see
to
her
be
fingers.
reunited. And I think that that was one of the most beautiful ceremonies that we had, and one of the most heartbreaking to know that we had to leave her back there.
Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say that's the West Berkeley shell mound that you're talking about, right down by
Yes,
Fourth
on
Street.
4th Street, exactly.
Yeah. And I know Karina has been involved in the efforts to protect that space, and I've been talking with Karina as well, and getting to know her a little bit. And yeah, it sounds like really amazing work.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is our way of being in reciprocity. For those of you who are hanging on to a home in the Bay Area despite all of the odds, it's because you love that place. And as much as we love and feel connected, imagine the original land stewards, who are alive and still, you know, uh, wanting to share their knowledge. I mean, there's so many California Native tribes up like further up north that have been able to do controlled land burns that are able to protect instead of destroy land up there. So I'm going to give a gesture if you're watching. Anyone who's taken my dance classes has seen variations of this, but for us all to do together, you two, Dawn and Josh and Amanda,
Yes.
which is we
All right,
breathe
all right.
in, we breathe out. You probably, every class you're asked to breathe. But when we're doing this, if we can breathe in and remember that we're receiving something, we're receiving oxygen. And then as you breathe out, we're giving back carbon dioxide. So you can use your arms. You're receiving, arms come in, and then you can circle under. So it creates a cycle, giving back, receiving, and then giving back. So we're in this cycle of reciprocity, most especially with our plants and our trees, because the trees make that oxygen for us, and then we make carbon dioxide for them. So I like to think of this reciprocity as like really fundamental to my practice, what I've received and what I can give. So those two pieces are an expression of my reciprocity for my care, my love, my gratitude for my family roots in the Bay Area. Um, we're also on my mom's side, people of the Luzon Island, Kapampangan people. And I was so pleased a few years ago to meet the Bangka Journey people, Bangka Canoe Project, which are Pomo natives and people of the Philippines who've come together to restore canoe knowledge. I mean, that talk about
Wow.
ancestral knowledge to be able to to go that far in the waters, being navigated by the stars in a vessel created, carved out of a tree. So they're amazing people doing amazing work. And I love this, what they said, which was, we're not people separated by land, but we're people connected by that big water.
Yes, I love that. Rulan, you've used a couple of terms that I'm hearing a lot more in art circles. So a few years back, I heard people start using this thing, theater makers start using the term decolonize your practice, decolonize your practice. And even then, I remember encountering some artists like Larissa Fast Horse, um, and Ty Defoe, who were already talking about indigenizing. And you've used both terms, decolonize and indigenize. And I'm somebody who's like, yeah, I'm very interested in indigenizing my practice. What does that mean? I feel like you just offered us this just gesture of reciprocity, and that feels like one way of indigenizing practice. What does that mean for you to indigenize a practice or
Well, I do
decolonize
think
a
that
practice?
I tend to lean more towards, instead of what we're against, into what we're for. It's sort of an energetic thing. With so, and frankly, artists tend to be like really up at the front doing things before people can even understand them, including themselves. So by the time the decolonization term gets used, we're on to like something else. So I know people might have applied it to their experience of my practice, and that's great too. If it empowers and uplifts folks. I do think that either decolonizing or indigenizing, not necessarily a formula, not a prescription, something that has to, go deep into reflection, takes a long time, and it needs continual revising. But when I'm invited, like at UC Berkeley, I was there for a long time, like 2 whole weeks. Like a job that lasts 2 weeks is amazing. And I imagine that for those students, what was scratched on the surface hopefully will, be a continual discovery throughout their lives. But where people tend to place my practice because of understanding just the pre-step before step one is about culture and place and personal story and what we come from in the past. But in truth, that's the pre-fundamental step to get us to, who am I now? What do I have to give? How does that serve a greater community? And where are we going in the future? So I think all of those steps are necessary and can be simultaneous, but definitely not to think of indigenous ways of being as being something from the past, or something from the past that we're trying to drag
Mhm.
into the now.
Yeah.
They're continually revitalized practices. All of us come from people that somewhere had a connection to maybe a sacred mountain, maybe a sacred uh, waterway, maybe tending to plants that would come up for feeding, or maybe more mobile, moving towards these plants or these animals. And again, when we think about it in those ways, it seems sort of like ancient history, but it's the ways of being in the world, the ways of being able to be in response to our 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 world, and prioritize the interconnectedness. I mean, when I say it, it always sounds it always seems less significant when we put it into words, but a way of being in the world, perhaps. And I think there's something to be said about um, it, finding your stories so that you're not uh, moving into other folks' stories. So I think that's where the issues of things like appropriation start to come in. So to be like, okay, this is, and I think a lot of it is oral histories. Does it
Mhm.
have to prioritize what's on a piece of paper? Not necessarily.
Mhm.
um, I guess this is a good time to talk about the new work we've been doing.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
because all of this, like, background work is so that you know contemporary indigenous people are able to like carry in this basket the the teachings that are relevant to now. And the last 10 years or more, we've been making work that have been elder advised about water, about seeds, about treaties. There's incredible work we did again at Dance Mission. Um, and one of the authors is living in the East Bay, Penny Opal Plant, and she is the co-author of the first Indigenous Women of the Americas Treaty defending
What do we
motherhood.
build?
I mean, so epic. Just the title of it, you're like, ah, I want to hear more. And so we were able to try take some of those words and put them into a dance work. So, really leaning on people who have a lot of knowledge and then allowing the dance to translate that knowledge. And then with this
Can
newer
you
work,
talk more about that? Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Mhm.
No, no. Oh, I was going to ask you. I would love to hear more about that process of how does it work to take words, right, and inject them into a dance piece, or build a dance piece inspired by what is the process by which the words become the dance?
Well, I think I should probably step back on the word I used, which is to take, because I think there's
Sure.
been enough history of like taking things, like take it and then I'm inspired to make my dance work. In fact, that's as a young dancer, that's what choreographers were told to do. They were like, if you can, I'm very Picasso, right? If I can steal and take, and that, make it, something that inspires my art. But this is more like listening and being humble to a facilitation, recognizing that this instinct to tell stories through gestures is something that's really ancient, and that it's okay for audiences to I, again, as a choreographer, you're told no pantomime not good, and like, who makes those rules, right? If we're going to go to ask or be gifted by an elder a story, maybe they want to know how the movement on stage connects to that story, even if it's connecting through like an energetic transmission rather than a word for word translation. So I do think a lot of it is building a vocabulary that tells a story, and then keeping in, like continual sharing, going back and forth, so that if you're asking for advice or if you're being given advice, then you have to listen, right? So it's, I think, really about listening a lot, Josh.
Thank you.
And then
And
with
you were
this
gonna.
work, we were told, like, what is it that the young people, what are the young people going to do with all this knowledge? What are they going to do for the future? What are they going to take of this knowledge for the generations ahead? So really, this idea of futurity and looking at young leadership, because I've also heard from uh, some of our some of our culture carriers that elders aren't necessarily older people. You can be
Mm.
actually born an elder. You can come onto this earth, with that kind of wisdom. And I was sort of shocked by that. And then, oh, of course that's true. Of course that's true. So amongst I shouldn't even say my, but when I say my, I mean I belong to them. But Dancing Earth is an incredible constellation of, yeah, global, indigenous, intertribal, multidisciplinary artists. And we spent 3 years making a work that finally premiered we started at the Dance Mission, showing it this time last year, and then we had our official premiere in Arizona, January 2020, and it was about the apocalypse and dreaming in a new future.
Mm.
Very timely. And then a month later, we were living that apocalypse. We had never thought of the apocalypse as being something of the future that's coming, something that people have been experiencing for about 500 years. Uh, and one of the outcomes was that our entire body of touring for 18 months, which was the first time, 16 years I'd been trying to get that going. And finally we had it. We'd be, almost full-time artists on the road. And all of it dried up within, a month of our premiere in January. And this pushed the dancers into the front lines. A lot of them are from Navajo Nation, which had, I think, maybe has the highest COVID rate
Mm.
across the country, and not many people know that. Um, they're also, their bodies are strong, so some of them are becoming grocery workers and, really like front lines workers, and also devastated because of what they'd committed to this artistic process, and it wasn't taking care of them. So I have resisted online work for 10 years. Professor
Nope.
Jacqueline J. Murphy, who lives in Oakland and teaches at UC Riverside, had been inviting me to create online work for 10 years. Many people had, and I had said no, 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 no. And I said, you know what? I have to get myself out of the way, be humble, and say maybe that we can do something here that can help dancers stay employed at least once a week so that they can offer their gifts out to the community. Because, like you said, Josh, our community needs this. They need to remember about inspiration and creativity and the arts as a way to help us imagine the world into a new reality, not back to normal or back to usual, but a new reality. So they started to become their own filmmakers, and we're doing this now. It's going to come out in October and November. I'll tell you a little bit later about that, but I'm going to show a little clip because one of the dancers who was in my first company, the very first iteration, has since moved on to become an incredible actor and filmmaker, even mainstream. His name is Alejandro Meraz. Fans of Twilight would know him as Alex Meraz of the Purepecha Nation. And he had seen our apocalypse work and made this incredible, you can see, very, very creative, very short clip. So Amanda, if you're able to share that one, see if you can get some of the magic. It was number 3, and it's
So cool.
yeah, that cool track was by Aaron Kinate. He had danced with the company, but now is doing more composing. They're wearing garments that had been repurposed from Goodwill and painted and cut. And, we'd always done that because we didn't have money for the real way of doing things. And now we're embracing it as a practice that is more ecologically friendly, less carbon footprint, so a more green way of making theater. And that the artist who helps make that, her name is Connie Windwalker. So my little, used to be a little notebook. I keep names and numbers and contact for incredible indigenous creators around the country. And sometimes some of these I met them when they were teenagers, or met them when they were 8 years old in some cases. And I just you know I try to stay in touch, or I just keep my intuitive networks open so that suddenly they'll come like a tumbleweed rolling in front, like, oh my goodness, time to create together. So yeah, I think it's really, Josh and Dawn, I think part of what we're doing is trying to make opportunities for artists. We always have been doing that. And, now I'm trying to make opportunities in fields that I'm not necessarily even expert in, such as like new media collaborations. But, we can't always doubt or, be overly humble of like, how can I be the one to do this? It's like, what? We just have to do what we can with what we have these days. I think you'll probably agree.
Absolutely. Um,
Hmm.
can you say more sort of like specifically about how you are creating work since this shelter in place began, like what tools you're using and how that's all coming together?
Yeah, so we're still pretty tightly sheltered in place. The dancers are spread out in different states at this point. Some of them are in quite remote areas where we're lucky if they have a signal. We're
Hmm.
using broken up old phones, so I mean this is a great time for all the wonderful tech industries to step in there and be partners with artists, because what we know is that arts are very valued right now. Because I don't know about you, Josh and Don, but I'm getting requests all the time for free content. And as much as I am thrilled to see how much people want and need the art for uplift, I also know that artists need to eat. And so uh, you know, and I do have an aesthetic. I mean, sometimes I have to move the aesthetic out of the way and be like, let's just get it out there. But I want things to look, that we can be proud of. And sometimes, the dancers might be using broken up phones to try to like self film. And even for let's call it rehearsals, but something like this, a Zoom gathering, might start with a prayer and a blessing, an intention, releasing of the challenges of the week, and some talking circle before we get into movement. But honestly, most of us are working in such small spaces that to dance together is more of it's more of an imagined space.
Mhm.
Um, but what we're doing is we're sharing stories and inspiration, and then and basically like a little mission, like they're superheroes and they have their mission for the week, and then they'll go and they'll use their phones without a camera person. They'll, I don't know, I was balancing mine on a rock and then it fell over, and just trying to love that process and not, for me, I get frustrated, I'm impatient, I that's how I am. So, in the process, I'll be in the midst of a really, potent conversation, then someone's internet will drop off. And half the time, I can't see everyone. They can't see me. I can't hear everyone. They can't hear me. One of those four, or, the dog jumps across the screen. I mean, it's just, a lot of distractions, a lot of reasons to just give up. But we know that artists are the visioners. Artists are the ones that can creatively, resiliently be creative, creatively be resilient. So we just keep pushing through, as hard as it is, because it's still a privilege and a luxury to have Wi-Fi, a privilege and a luxury to be able to have even these instruments. Like, even if they're, broken or old, there's many people who don't have that. So we have to take what we have and, allow it to be the most creative tool that we can. So we even are doing little sessions where we're working with, don't even say like people that necessarily call themselves artists, but people who want to have creative practice and and build it from a cultural place. So we did something called C5 this summer, which was like creative, collaborative, cultural content in cyberspace for camera, something like that. I might have the title a little mixed up. So people were tuning in from around the world, like New Zealand, Guahan, Peru, like literally an international gathering. And we shared skills so that they too could create their stories their way together. I mean, I think that's really part of that, you know, the agency to be able to not just brown bodies in a Western frame being cast in a in someone else's story. So, Amanda, that last clip, I think it's should be number 4, I think.
There's a web that connects us all.
Endless points of contact.
As we intertwine into one.
Flexible, movable, reflective, woven.
Sacred geometry buzzing against my palms.
Hearts to hold in the sun and starlight.
Movement to one's heart and soul.
Our ancestors speak. What did we learn? What did we build?
From the sea to the land, transformation is always an option.
Spark catches spark, and the universe tears new life too.
Who was cast out? Return now. All will be welcomed home.
So proud of these humans that got together. That was like 6 half days. Before that, they did not know each other. They were coming from different parts of the world. Some of them consider themselves performers or artists, some of them don't. And this is what, we can come up with as creative human beings.
So astonishing. How can people who want to experience more of Dancing Earth's work right now, how can people do that? What access do people have?
Yeah, I'm going to just embrace right now this cyberspace, because it allows so much more accessibility. So I've been teaching a class once a month on Sundays, and it's a chance for people to experience a bit of that Dancing Earth methodology, which usually it would be, come and visit me in the summertime. We'll go out, we'll actually go to the Southwest, to the canyons of New Mexico, where's my other home, and we'll dance there with it's become land dance, but again, at the beginning, it's because we didn't have the funds for studio spaces, and we kept getting chased out of public parks because we didn't have licenses. So we went more and more remote into canyons. Now we're hosted by my long friends and relatives at the Apache Reservation. They said, yeah, people can't give you dorms and housing. You're going to stay in a teepee with us. So, it's gotten, more and more of a really distinctive experience with the people of that land. And we're hoping to recreate a version of that up in Mendocino County. So, part of it is someone offering their ranch, but another part is, getting into relationship with the host First Nations there so that we can really be received and be there in a good way. So those are like in-person experiences that we will get to at some point. But in the meanwhile, we're creating this international, intercultural relation building with these I'll call them institutes. So our next institute is in February, I think. And we have a website, dancingearth.org, and that's where in the calendar, like dancingearth.org/events, there's a calendar. That's how you find out what's coming up next. So our apocalyptic production, which we turned into a virtual reality mini-series with the help of a Afro-Indigenous coder and world maker and futurist. She's basically like through anime, I don't know, through some magic, I'll just call it magic, magical, hardworking skills. She's creating this world, this universe. And then all the footage that we're creating with our, with the skills that we have, it's being embedded into this universe. And it's going to be offered out in short little spurts, like little half-hour episodes, because we want to have people, this inspiration, and then give people time to reflect and see, what does it generate for them. So we're going to preview it in the night of the next debate. My goodness, what timing is that? So experience the debate and then come on to have a preview of it. So that'll be October 15th. And, it's really an invitation to all of our communities to take the time to consider what we're dreaming in for ourselves and for the collective. And that's really what the vision for this, the reason, the purpose. Like, I think Josh and Don, before the call started, we were talking about, it's not that I don't know about you, but I haven't had a lot of time to reflect, but I've had time to, to generate. But in this timing, it's a time to re-evaluate the role of arts at this time. What are we doing? Who is benefiting? How do we do it? I feel like that's a big question. Even if we had been like seriously grounded before, to just be like, okay, well, now we're in this different way of doing things. So, for example, for me, I've always been interested in the local and the global, and notice how we can do this through this web. Let's call it this interweb of connection. And in doing it this way, it's actually at a lower carbon footprint. So we're saving some trees. We are not contributing to that extraction industry that is harming so many people and species. It's causing climate change. Because with every airfare, every flight that we take, that I usually fly a lot because of my work, not having like one job, I go many places. So, all right, so then the silver lining to this is that our art can cause less harm to the environment by doing it in this way. And, by protecting those resources, we're protecting the air and the water. And, that's, we're called Dancing Earth. So, I'm gonna continue to have offerings online, even when things become also able to do them live. Do you feel the same way, Josh, with Aurora and Dawn?
Yeah, I think there's some things that are happening now that are really exciting and very different. And I certainly, this Aurora Connects is something, that's been so meaningful that it's, something I think we're going to want to keep going in one form or another, even after we can make live theater again. But it's just so beautiful to hear everything that you're doing. Again, I want to say that website one more time. It's dancingearth.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, dancingearth.org, and then slash events is where you'll get to the, like if you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see the calendar, these little pictures, and you're like, oh, that looks good, that looks good. And we try to keep up with it, we try to, especially for that month. But honestly, like things come in. I think this call came in just about a week ago. So plop that in there
Yeah.
because I mean, I really see what you're doing. You're reaching out your hands one side to the other. Everyone who's watching, you can reach out. We'll make this beautiful long chain
We're doing it. We're doing
together.
it.
Not a chain, how about like a, this vine, this twisted vine, as we connect together. And probably Dawn, Josh, Amanda, during a usual season, you're probably just so busy with production and, all of that, that we don't always have time, time to reach out to other arts organizations. And in a way, we're often pitted against each other with funding and all of that. Not that that's how we feel about each other, but that might be as much as we'll know as like, oh, they got that thing we were sweating, putting that application together at midnight. And this is really what you're setting is this beautiful example of like, hey, let's connect and share each other's stories, get to know each other a little more as neighbors, as friends, as colleagues, as dream visioners. And this is really where, as humans we want to be. And our heart should, our art should spring from our hearts as human beings. So I really wanted to make sure, I was so crazy trying to schedule it in today, but I wanted to make that time and that space so that we can really show how we are in community together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So great. So
Thank
great.
you so much. We're going to have to wrap it there, but I hope that we can continue talking and finding more ways to collaborate and stay in touch and work together. This has been a lovely conversation. I also want to, we already mentioned you mentioned the Sogoreate Land Trust. That is our advocacy organization this week. It's SOGOREATE landtrust.org. The Land Trust cultivates rematriation. Sogoreate calls on us all to heal and transform the legacies of colonization, genocide, and patriarchy, and to do the work our ancestors and future generations are calling us to do. Shumi means gift in Chochenyo. The Shumi land tax is an invitation to support the vital work of the Sogoreate Land Trust, a small step towards acknowledging the history of genocide on this land and contributing to its healing. So we encourage everyone to check that out. Check out dancingearth.org. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh, you, Dawn, and Amanda. And just hearing that statement from the Land Trust, we've already received so much. So don't be embarrassed if you can't make a donation to them, but just get on that website and, listen and learn from what they have to offer. It's so powerful at this time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to meet you and learn more about Dancing Earth. I'm so glad that Raphael connected us. And this is just the beginning. Yeah. Just the
Awesome.
beginning.
Well, come and take the dance class on Sunday, October 18th. That we'll do that after our preview on the 15th. So yeah, we've got a lot of things rolling for this incredible week. I'll be at UC Berkeley on Monday to do to meet with students there. So yeah, just things are popping in the Bay. We're making it happen. So love you all. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. So we are going to wrap this episode up. I want to remind you that memberships are available at auroratheater.org for our audio drama and all the other wonderful programming that we're bringing to you online this year. Also, if we are able to present live theater, if something happens and it works out, then your membership will include tickets to any live productions we're able to present. So auroratheater.org for that.
And again, we love your comments. We love when you watch with us when we're live. And even though we weren't today, we will check out any comments you've left for us after you've watched the episode. You can always reach us at connects@auroratheater.org. There's the proper email address, auroratheater.org, connects@auroratheater.org. And a reminder that this is also available in audio podcast format wherever you get your podcasts. And remember to hit like and subscribe on YouTube. Josh, Who do we have next week?
I'm looking forward to this. Next week, we have my old friend Sam Hurwitz and his father, Robert Hurwitz. They are two very well-known Bay Area theater reviewers. Robert Hurwitz, of course, was the reviewer for the San Francisco Chronicle for many years. Sam has written for the East Bay Express and many other papers, the Marin Independent Journal. Theater Bay Area, he's done all kinds of stuff. And the two of them, the father and son team, are going to be our guests next week on Aurora Connects.
That'll be fun. Until then, folks, take care of yourselves, be well, and thank you for staying connected. Have a great weekend.